Hello there, friends, and welcome back to Lily's podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you joining me today for what I think is going to be an incredibly valuable conversation. My name is Lily, and if you're new here, welcome to the show. This is a space where we dive deep into practical English communication techniques that will genuinely transform the way you speak and interact with people in your daily life. Every episode is designed to help you move beyond basic textbook English and into the real, vibrant, natural language that native speakers actually use when they're having conversations with friends, colleagues, family members, and strangers. So if you're looking to sound more confident, more fluent, and more authentically connected to the language you're learning, you're in exactly the right place. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to remind everyone to please share this podcast with someone you care about who's also working on their English skills. Word of mouth truly matters, and your recommendation could be exactly what someone needs to take their speaking abilities to the next level. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel because we're constantly creating fresh content, new episodes, and innovative ways to help you become more proficient in English. Oh, and here's something really important. If you want to explore more episodes just like this one, I've created a dedicated podcast playlist on the channel where all of our episodes are organized and easy to find. Just head over to the podcast playlist section and you'll find a growing library of conversations and lessons covering everything from pronunciation challenges to advanced grammar patterns to cultural nuances in English communication. All right, so today's episode is particularly special because we're going to explore something that most English learners don't spend enough time on, but absolutely should. We're talking about advanced conversational expressions and phrases that completely reshape how native speakers communicate in everyday situations. These aren't the kinds of phrases you'll find in your basic English textbooks. These are the real gems that you hear in casual conversations between friends, in professional settings with colleagues, during unexpected moments, and in the small talk that happens naturally throughout our days. Here's something I've observed after working with hundreds of English learners. Most people can construct grammatically correct sentences. They know the rules. They understand the structure. But there's often a gap between being grammatically correct and sounding natural, fluent, and genuinely confident in real-time conversation. And that gap is what we're going to bridge together today. The reason this matters so much is because language is fundamentally about connection and communication. When you use the right phrases in the right way, people respond differently to you. They perceive you as more confident, more thoughtful, more relatable, and that's what we're really aiming for here. Think about how you communicate in your native language. You don't consciously think about grammar rules or sentence structure. Instead, you naturally reach for expressions that feel authentic to the situation, to your personality, and to the relationship you have with the person you're talking to. You're flexible, intuitive, and responsive. That's the level of fluency we're working towards together. And the beautiful thing is that fluency isn't something that happens by accident. It's something that develops when you intentionally practice these natural expressions over and over again until they become part of your automatic vocabulary. So that's what we're going to do today. Throughout this episode, I'm going to walk you through dozens of authentic conversational phrases. For each one, I'll explain how it's used, when it's appropriate, why native speakers prefer it, and I'll give you multiple real-world examples so you can see it in context. Then we're going to practice it together because here's what really works: listening to the phrase, understanding it intellectually, and then saying it out loud yourself. That combination creates real, lasting change in your speaking abilities. Let's start with something fundamental: how to begin conversations naturally. Now, you probably know the basics. How are you? "What's up?" These are fine, but they're also incredibly common, and sometimes they can feel a little stiff depending on context. What if I told you there are more dynamic, more engaging ways to start conversations that make people feel genuinely seen and valued? Let me share some of my favorites. Instead of the standard, "How are you?" try something like, "How's everything been treating you lately?" This shows genuine curiosity about their overall experience, not just a surface-level hello. It opens the door for them to share what's actually going on in their lives. Or consider saying, "What's been occupying most of your time these days?" This is fantastic for reconnecting with someone after time has passed. It shows that you're interested in their current life, their projects, what they're focused on. Another great option is, "I haven't heard from you in a while. What have you been up to?" This acknowledges the gap in your connection and invites them to update you on their life. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you run into an old colleague at the grocery store. Instead of just saying, "How are you?" you could say something like, "It's so good to see you. Tell me, how have things been going with you since we last caught up?" This immediately signals that you value them as a person, not just as someone passing through your life. It feels warmer, more intentional, more human. Now, let's practice this together. I want you to say out loud, "It's so good to see you. Tell me, how have things been going with you since we last caught up?" Go ahead and say that now. Perfect. Notice how that flows naturally, how it creates space for a real conversation to develop. "It's so good to see you. Tell me, how have things been going with you since we last caught up?" Another set of conversation starters that work beautifully are context-specific openers. For instance, if you're at a work event and you notice someone standing alone, instead of the awkward, "Hi, how are you?" you might say, "This is quite the gathering, isn't it? Have you been to one of these events before?" This acknowledges the shared context and creates a natural bridge for conversation. Or at a social gathering, you could say, "I've been looking forward to this all week. Have you? What brought you here today?" These openers acknowledge the environment you're in, which makes the conversation feel more grounded and real. Let me share another scenario. You're at your child's school event, and you see another parent you've chatted with before but don't know well. A natural way to start conversation would be, "How's everything going on your end? I feel like we keep just missing each other, but I'd love to catch up properly." "How's everything going on your end? I feel like we keep just missing each other, but I'd love to catch up properly." Say that out loud now. Excellent. Now say it again, but this time imagine you're genuinely happy to see this person and let that emotion come through in your voice. Moving into a very practical area, making and discussing plans. This happens constantly in our daily lives. You need to coordinate schedules, find times that work for everyone, and adjust when things change. Instead of the very basic, "Let's meet," fluent speakers use language that's more engaging and gives more flexibility. One of my favorite phrases is, "Why don't we coordinate our schedules and find a time that works well for both of us?" This shows consideration for the other person's time while also being action-oriented. You're not just suggesting a vague meeting, you're actively problem-solving to make it happen. Similarly, you could say, "Would it work for you if we grabbed coffee next Thursday afternoon? I'm fairly flexible with the timing." This is collaborative. You're offering a suggestion, but leaving room for their input. Here's something I use frequently in both personal and professional settings. Let me check my calendar and get back to you with a few time options that might work. This is excellent because it shows you're taking the arrangement seriously enough to actually look at your schedule, and you're going to offer multiple options rather than just one possibility. People really appreciate this approach because it shows respect for their time and flexibility. This is excellent because it shows you're taking the arrangement seriously enough to actually look at your schedule, and you're going to offer multiple options rather than just one possibility. People really appreciate this approach because it shows respect for their time and flexibility. I've got a fairly flexible weekend, so when would work best for you? We could do lunch, coffee, or maybe even a longer catch-up. Say that with me now. Oh, how wonderful that you're in town. I'd absolutely love to see you. I've got a fairly flexible weekend, so when would work best for you? We could do lunch, coffee, or maybe even a longer catch-up. Another phrase that works beautifully for planning is, I'm really excited about the possibility of us getting together. Are you thinking something casual, or would you prefer something more structured? This asks clarifying questions that help you understand what the other person actually wants, which makes the planning process smoother. Or here's a professional version. I'd like to schedule a time to discuss this project in more detail. Would you prefer a quick phone call, an in-person meeting, or perhaps a video conference? This shows you're thinking about their preferences and offering options. When plans change, and they always do, you want language that's apologetic but also action-oriented. Instead of just, I'm sorry I can't make it, try, I'm really disappointed because I was genuinely looking forward to this, but something unexpected has come up that I need to handle. Would it be possible to reschedule for another time? This shows genuine regret while also immediately moving toward a solution. Let's practice a full planning conversation. I'll play the role of your friend, and you respond using natural, fluent language. Friend says, "Hey, are you free next week? I'd really like to hang out." Your response could be, "I'd love that. Next week is looking pretty busy with work, but I know I have Wednesday evening and most of Saturday free. Which of those works better for you? Or do you have other days in mind?" Next week is looking pretty busy with work, but I know I have Wednesday evening and most of Saturday free. Which of those works better for you? Or do you have other days in mind? One of the most valuable skills in conversation is knowing how to express uncertainty gracefully. Not everyone has an immediate answer to every question, and that's perfectly fine. But the way you express your uncertainty says a lot about how thoughtful and engaged you are in the conversation. Instead of just blurting out, "I don't know," there are so many more sophisticated, natural ways to express uncertainty. Let's start with the most basic version. Instead of saying, "I don't know," you could say, "I'm not entirely sure about that at the moment, but I could look into it and get back to you." This is more professional, more helpful, and it signals that you're willing to find the answer. Similarly, you could say, "That's an interesting question. I haven't really given it much thought, but I can definitely think about it and share my thoughts with you soon." This shows you're taking the question seriously, and you're committing to actually thinking about it rather than just dismissing it. Here's a phrase that's particularly useful when you're in a conversation and someone asks you something that requires a thoughtful response. "Let me think about that for a moment." It's a bit more nuanced than "I can answer off the top of my head." This gives you space to think while also showing that you're taking the question seriously and recognizing its complexity. Say that with me. "Let me think about that for a moment. It's a bit more nuanced than I can answer off the top of my head." Notice how this doesn't dismiss the question, it elevates it. When you need thinking time in real-time conversation, you can use phrases like, "That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about it from that angle before, but now that you mention it, I think." Or simply, "Give me just a second to gather my thoughts here." These are natural, they're relatable, and they give you the space you need without creating awkward silence or making you seem unprepared. Let me give you another practical scenario. You're in a meeting, and your boss asks for your opinion on a new strategy. You don't have an immediate answer. Instead of panicking, you could say, "I appreciate you asking for my perspective on this. I want to give you a thoughtful answer rather than a quick reaction. Could I take a day or two to review the details and come back with my insights? I appreciate you asking for my perspective on this. I appreciate you asking for my perspective on this. I want to give you a thoughtful answer rather than a quick reaction. Could I take a day or two to review the details and come back with my insights? Another scenario, a friend asks you what you think about their career change idea, and you're honestly not sure what you think yet. Instead of hemming and hawing, you could say, I can see why this appeals to you, and I want to give you honest feedback. Let me spend some time thinking about it, because I want to make sure I'm giving you my most thoughtful perspective, not just my gut reaction. Say that with me now. I can see why this appeals to you, and I want to give you honest feedback. Let me spend some time thinking about it, because I want to make sure I'm giving you my most thoughtful perspective, not just my gut reaction. Now let's talk about something that happens regularly in conversations. People sharing good news with you. A birthday celebration, a promotion, a wedding announcement, a new job, passing a difficult exam. How you react to their good news sets the tone for how they feel about sharing with you in the future. So let's elevate your reactions beyond the standard, "That's nice," or "Congrats." When someone shares positive news, saying something like, "That's wonderful, tell me everything," immediately signals your genuine interest and enthusiasm. Or you could say, "That's fantastic news. I'm genuinely happy for you. How are you feeling about it?" Or consider, "I'm so thrilled to hear this. You've worked so hard for this moment. This is incredible." This acknowledges their effort and your recognition of their achievement. Let me walk you through a realistic scenario. Your friend tells you, "I just got offered the job I've been interviewing for." How do you respond? A natural, fluent response would be, "Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I remember you telling me how much you wanted this position. Congratulations, you absolutely deserve it. Tell me everything about how it went." Say that with me. "Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I remember you telling me how much you wanted this position. Congratulations, you absolutely deserve it. Tell me everything about how it went." Here's another scenario. A colleague tells you they're engaged. Instead of just saying, "Congrats," you might say, "That's such wonderful news. I'm so happy for you both." How did they propose? I'd love to hear the whole story. "That's such wonderful news. I'm so happy for you both. How did they propose? I'd love to hear the whole story." When celebrating someone's achievement, you can also say, "This is huge. I remember when you weren't sure if you could do this, and look at you now. I'm really impressed and genuinely happy for your success." This acknowledges their journey, not just the destination. It shows you've been paying attention to their growth. Another powerful response to good news is, "I want to acknowledge how significant this is. You've put in so much effort, and this is a reflection of your dedication and hard work. I'm really proud of you." This is especially effective when someone has achieved something they've been working toward for a long time. Say that with me. "I want to acknowledge how significant this is. You've put in so much effort, and this is a reflection of your dedication and hard work. I'm really proud of you." This is a big one. Disagreement happens in every relationship, in every workplace, in every social group. But most English learners struggle with how to disagree respectfully and thoughtfully. They either avoid disagreement altogether, or they come across as harsh or disrespectful. Let's change that. The key to disagreeing well is to start with acknowledgement. Before you state your opposing view, acknowledge that you understand their perspective. You might say, "I can see where you're coming from, and I appreciate your perspective. That said, I look at it a bit differently." This immediately softens the disagreement and shows respect for their viewpoint. Or you could use, "That's an interesting perspective, and I understand why you might think that. From my angle, I see some potential challenges with that approach." Here's a particularly useful phrase. "I respect your opinion on this, and I'm sure it comes from a good place. I do want to offer a different viewpoint for your consideration." This is diplomatic, it's respectful, and it opens the door for genuine dialogue rather than conflict. Say that with me. "I respect your opinion on this, and I'm sure it comes from a good place. I do want to offer a different viewpoint for your consideration." Let me give you a practical scenario. You're in a team meeting, and a colleague suggests an approach that you don't think will work. Instead of saying, "That won't work," you could say, "I hear what you're saying, and I can see the benefits of that approach. I do want to raise a concern I'm thinking about. Have we considered how this might impact our timeline?" This respectfully introduces a potential issue without being dismissive. Practice this. "I hear what you're saying, and I can see the benefits of that approach. I do want to raise a concern I'm thinking about. Have we considered how this might impact our timeline?" Another scenario. Your friend wants to make a decision that you think is unwise. You care about them and want to offer your honest perspective, but you don't want to hurt them or seem like you don't respect their autonomy. You could say, "I care about you, which is why I want to be honest with you. I can see why this appeals to you, and I also want to gently suggest we think through some potential consequences. What's your thinking on how this might affect your situation?" This is loving, it's honest, and it invites dialogue. When you fundamentally disagree with someone's worldview or values, you might say, "We clearly see this differently, and that's okay. I respect you, even though we don't see eye to eye on this. I'm curious about how you came to that perspective, because I value understanding how you think." This shows intellectual humility and genuine curiosity rather than judgment. Here's another approach when you're concerned about someone's reasoning. "I want to play devil's advocate for a moment, just to make sure we've thought this through from all angles. What if we looked at it from this perspective?" This frames your disagreement as collaborative problem solving rather than confrontation. One of the most important skills in communication is the ability to express genuine empathy. When someone is struggling, when they're going through a difficult time, the words you choose matter tremendously. Instead of just saying, "That's sad," or "I'm sorry," you want to show that you truly understand and care about their experience. Let's start with the basics. Instead of "That's too bad," you could say, "That sounds really challenging. I can understand why you'd be feeling frustrated about this." This shows you're genuinely trying to imagine their experience. Or, "I can see how that would be disappointing. That's a lot to process." This acknowledges both the emotional weight and the complexity of their situation. When someone is going through something difficult, you might say, "I don't know exactly what you're experiencing, but I want you to know that I'm here for you and I care about what you're going through." This is humble, it's genuine, and it signals your availability and support. Say that with me. "I don't know exactly what you're experiencing, but I want you to know that I'm here for you and I care about what you're going through." Here's a powerful response if someone tells you about a loss or disappointment. "My heart goes out to you. That must be really difficult, and I want you to know that I'm thinking of you. Is there anything I can do to support you right now?" This offers both emotional support and practical help. It's warm and genuine. Let me give you a scenario. Your friend tells you they didn't get the promotion they were hoping for after working toward it for months. Instead of just saying, "Oh no," you could say, "I know how much this meant to you, and I remember all the effort you put into preparing for this. It's completely understandable that you're disappointed right now. I want you to know that I see your value and potential, and this one decision doesn't change that. I know how much this meant to you, and I remember all the effort you put into preparing for this. It's completely understandable that you're disappointed right now. I want you to know that I see your value and potential, and this one decision doesn't change that. When someone is stressed or overwhelmed, you might say, "It sounds like you're carrying a lot right now." You don't have to figure everything out today. Sometimes it helps just to talk through it. I'm here if you want to do that. This is calming, it's supportive, and it takes pressure off them to have all the answers. Here's another powerful phrase. I've been in situations where I felt similarly, so I can relate to what you're experiencing. It's rough, I know. But you've gotten through difficult things before, and I have confidence that you'll find your way through this too. Now let's talk about offering help. This is a specific skill because most people want to be helpful, but the way they offer help can sometimes feel awkward, intrusive, or even condescending. Now let's talk about offering help. This is a specific skill because most people want to be helpful, but the way they offer help can sometimes feel awkward, intrusive, or even condescending. Instead of the very direct, "Do you need help?" you could say, "I'd really like to help. What would be most useful for you right now?" This shows you're ready and willing, but you're also respecting their autonomy by asking what they actually need. Or, "I'm here if there's anything you need. I don't want to overstep, but please don't hesitate to ask." This shows care while also respecting boundaries. Or in a workplace context, "I noticed you're working on this project. If you need an extra set of eyes or help with anything, please let me know. I've got some availability." This signals help without making assumptions about what they need. Here's a phrase that works really well when someone is clearly stressed. "I want to help lighten your load somehow. Is there anything on your plate right now that I could take off your hands or assist with?" This shows you're actively thinking about their well-being. Say that with me. "I want to help lighten your load somehow. Is there anything on your plate right now that I could take off your hands or assist with?" When helping someone move or tackle a big project, you might say, "I've got the afternoon free, and I'd really like to help you get this done. Let me know what would be most useful. We can take it at whatever pace you need." Another useful phrase, "I know you're dealing with a lot right now." Rather than just saying, "Let me know if you need anything," I'm going to be more specific. "Can I bring you dinner this week? Would that help?" This is more actionable than vague offers of help. It shows you're really thinking about concrete ways to support them. This is an area where many English learners struggle because they feel obligated to say yes to everything, or they don't know how to decline without sounding harsh or ungracious. Let's practice declining in ways that are honest, kind, and respectful. Instead of just saying, "I can't," you could say, "I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm genuinely sorry I can't make it. I've already committed to something else that evening, and I don't want to be flaky." This shows you value them and the invite while being clear about your boundary. Say that with me. "I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm genuinely sorry I can't make it. I've already committed to something else that evening, and I don't want to be flaky." Here's another approach. "That sounds lovely, and I wish I could be there. Unfortunately, I'm not able to make it work this time. Would there be another opportunity in the future?" This opens the door for future connection while being clear about your current limitation. When you need to decline a request at work, you might say, "I appreciate you thinking of me for this. I'm currently at capacity with my other projects, and I want to make sure I can give this the attention it deserves. Could we revisit this in a few weeks when I have more bandwidth?" This is professional, it's honest, and it shows you're thinking about quality of work. Here's a useful phrase when you need to decline something that doesn't align with your values or interests. "Thank you so much for thinking of me. That's not really something I feel equipped to help with, but I'd be happy to suggest someone who might be a better fit." When declining social invitations, you might say, "I'm so touched that you want me there. I'm trying to be more intentional about how I spend my time right now, and I need to pass on this one. I hope you have an amazing time. This is honest about your boundaries while being warm about the relationship. These are practical phrases you'll use constantly in real conversations. Sometimes people speak too quickly, or their accents are unfamiliar, or you're just not quite catching what they're saying. Instead of just blankly starring or interrupting, here are natural ways to ask for clarification. Instead of just saying, "What?" you could say, "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you say it again?" This is polite and clear about what you need. Or, "Sorry, my mind was wandering for a second. Could you repeat that last part?" Say that with me. "Sorry, my mind was wandering for a second. Could you repeat that last part?" When you're genuinely confused about what someone's saying, you might say, "I want to make sure I understand what you're saying correctly. Are you saying that?" And then restate what you think they meant. This gives them the chance to clarify while showing you're making a genuine effort to understand. In professional settings, you might say, "Could you walk me through that one more time? I want to make sure I'm understanding the full picture." This shows engagement and a genuine desire to understand completely rather than just getting by. When someone uses an unfamiliar word or concept, you could say, "That's interesting. I'm not familiar with that term. Could you explain what you mean by that?" Here's another useful phrase. "I'm following most of what you're saying, but I'm getting a bit lost on this part. Could you clarify how that connects to what you mentioned earlier?" This is specific and shows you're really trying to create a coherent understanding. When someone shares surprising information with you, how you respond matters. Instead of just saying, "Really?" or "Oh, wow," there are more dynamic ways to express surprise and genuine interest. You could say, "That's completely unexpected. I had no idea things were moving in that direction. How did that happen?" This shows genuine surprise while inviting them to share more. Or, "Wow, that's quite a turn of events. I wasn't expecting that at all." "Wow, that's quite a turn of events. I wasn't expecting that at all. Tell me more about how that came about." "That's incredible. I'm so impressed that you managed to pull that off. I honestly thought that would take much longer. How did you do it?" This combines surprise with admiration and genuine curiosity. When you're surprised by something challenging, you could say, "I honestly didn't see that coming. That must have been quite the shock for you. How are you processing this?" This shows you understand the emotional weight of their surprise. Here's a phrase for when someone tells you something that changes how you see a situation. "That's a completely different picture than what I thought. I really appreciate you sharing that context with me. It makes so much sense now." This shows openness to having your perspective shifted. When you want to offer advice or make a suggestion, the way you frame it really matters. You want to be helpful without being pushy, you want to offer wisdom without being condescending, and you want to respect the other person's autonomy while still sharing your perspective. Instead of saying, "You should do this," which can sound bossy, try, "Have you considered trying this approach? I think it might help because of these reasons." This offers your suggestion while explaining your reasoning. Or, "What do you think about this idea? It worked well for me in a similar situation." This is tentative and it acknowledges that what worked for you might not work for them. Here is a useful phrase when someone is struggling with a decision. "I notice you seem torn about this. I have a thought if you'd like to hear it. From my perspective, the most important thing is that you feel good about your decision. What does your gut tell you?" This puts their intuition first while offering to share your perspective. Say that with me. "I notice you seem torn about this. I have a thought if you'd like to hear it. From my perspective, the most important thing is that you feel good about your decision. What does your gut tell you?" When giving more serious advice, you might say, "I care about you, which is why I want to be honest with you. I'm concerned about this path you're considering. Here's my thinking, and I'd love to hear what you think about my concerns. This is loving, honest, and invites dialogue. Another approach. I've been through something similar, and I learned some things that were valuable. I don't know if they apply to your situation, but I wanted to offer my experience in case it's useful. Everyone feels frustrated and disappointed sometimes. The question is how you express these feelings in ways that are honest without being destructive to your relationships. Let's practice this. Instead of saying, I'm frustrated, you could say, I'm disappointed about how this turned out. I had different expectations, and I'm still processing that. This is more specific and shows self-awareness. Or, I'm feeling pretty let down by this situation. I really thought it would go differently. This expresses your emotion while being clear about what specifically disappointed you. When something frustrating happens, you might say, this is really not going the way I hoped it would. I need to take a moment to collect my thoughts because I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed right now. This is honest. It gives you space to process, and it explains to the other person that you need a moment. Here's a useful phrase when you're frustrated with someone's behavior, but you want to address it constructively. I want to talk about what happened because it's bothering me, and I think we can find a better way forward. I'm frustrated, not angry, and I want us to figure this out together. This is honest about your emotion while signaling that you're approaching this collaboratively. I want to talk about what happened because it's bothering me, and I think we can find a better way forward. I'm frustrated, not angry, and I want us to figure this out together. When you're disappointed in someone, you might say, I'm not going to pretend I'm not disappointed. I expected better from you given our relationship. I think we should talk about what happened. This is honest, and it opens the door for genuine conversation. On the flip side, when something difficult resolves or works out well, you want to express that relief authentically. Instead of just saying, I'm glad, there are more colorful, more expressive ways to convey that sense of relief. You might say, oh my goodness, I'm so relieved. I was genuinely worried about how that was going to play out. I'm so glad it worked out. Or, that's one less thing to stress about. I feel like I can finally breathe. When something satisfying concludes, you could say, I feel so accomplished right now. We put in serious effort, and it really paid off. I'm genuinely proud of how we handled that. Phew, that was intense, but we made it through. I'm so grateful it's over, and I'm really satisfied with how things turned out in the end. Whew, that was intense, but we made it through. I'm so grateful it's over, and I'm really satisfied with how things turned out in the end. When you finish something challenging, you might express it like, I can't believe that's finally done. I'm exhausted, but I feel so accomplished. This is a huge weight off my shoulders. This shows both the difficulty of what you just completed and your satisfaction. Let's talk about sharing excitement about upcoming events or future plans. Instead of just saying, I'm excited, there are much more vibrant ways to express that anticipatory joy. You could say, I've been counting down the days until this happens. I genuinely can't wait. It's going to be amazing. This shows your anticipation is genuine and strong. Or, I'm so looking forward to this. I've been thinking about it all week, and I keep getting excited just imagining it. This shows it's occupying your thoughts in a positive way. When you're excited about something upcoming, you might say, this is going to be fantastic. I've put together a whole plan, and I think it's going to be better than anything we've done before. This shows you're not just passively waiting, you're actively engaged in making it good. Here's another way to express excitement. I'm absolutely thrilled about what's coming up. This is going to be such a good experience, and I want to make sure we really savor it together. This combines excitement with intentionality. Say that with me. I'm absolutely thrilled about what's coming up. This is going to be such a good experience, and I want to make sure we really savor it together. Agreement is simple on the surface, but there are so many nuanced ways to express it depending on the context and how strongly you agree. Let's explore this. Instead of just saying yes, you could express strong agreement with you. I completely agree with you on this. In fact, I think you're underselling how important this is. This shows you not only agree, you think they might be being too modest about it. Or, you're absolutely right. I hadn't thought about it from that angle, but now that you mention it, it makes perfect sense. This shows their input changed or clarified your thinking. When you agree with someone's assessment, you might say, "That's exactly my take on it too. I've been saying this for a while, and I'm glad someone else sees it clearly." This creates alliance and shows you've been thinking similarly. Here's a useful phrase. I'm with you completely on this. It's refreshing to talk to someone who gets it the same way I do. This shows agreement while also expressing appreciation for that alignment. I'm with you completely on this. It's refreshing to talk to someone who gets it the same way I do. When you partly agree and partly don't, you might say, "I hear you, and I agree with most of what you're saying. I do think there's one aspect we might look at differently." This shows nuance in your thinking. Moving from one topic to another in conversation can feel awkward if you don't have the right phrases. Let's practice making these transitions feel natural and conversational. Instead of abruptly changing the subject or awkwardly saying, "By the way," you could say, "Speaking of which, that reminds me of something I wanted to ask you about." This creates a bridge between topics. Or, "That brings up something I've been meaning to talk about with you." This shows the topics are actually connected in your mind, even if they might seem unrelated to the listener. On a completely different note, here's a useful transitional phrase. On a completely different note, how have you been doing with? Say that with me. On a completely different note, how have you been doing with? Another approach. I don't want to derail our conversation, but there's something I've been wanting to ask you. This shows respect for the current topic while signaling you have something else to discuss. When you want to return to a previous topic, you might say, "Going back to what you mentioned earlier about, I've been thinking about that, and I have another thought." This shows you were really listening and your mind engaged with what they said. Let me give you some realistic scenarios where you might need to both agree and respectfully disagree. This is where you practice combining the skills we've been learning. Scenario 1. Your friend says they're considering quitting their job because they're stressed. You agree their stress is real, but you might not agree that quitting is the answer. Here's how you might respond. "I absolutely believe you're stressed. I can see how much this job is wearing on you. That said, I want to gently suggest we think through the practical implications before making such a big decision. Have you considered what a transition plan might look like?" This validates their stress while offering a different perspective on the solution. Practice this. "I absolutely believe you're stressed. I can see how much this job is wearing on you. That said, I want to gently suggest we think through the practical implications before making such a big decision. Have you considered what a transition plan might look like? I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate your confidence in me, and they think you should be more spontaneous." You might respond, "I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate your confidence in me. I'm genuinely glad you believe in me that much. My mind just works differently, and I function better when I've thought things through. That's not a weakness, it's just who I am. I respect your spontaneous approach, and I'm okay with people taking different approaches." This agrees with their positive assessment of you while respectfully maintaining your own values. Idioms are expressions where the meaning isn't literal, and they're absolutely everywhere in native speech. Learning some common ones will make you sound much more natural and fluent. Let's explore several. I've got a lot on my plate right now means you're very busy. Instead of saying, I'm busy, this sounds much more natural and colorful. Say that. I've got a lot on my plate right now. I'm running on fumes means you're exhausted, almost out of energy. This is much more expressive than just saying, I'm tired. Practice. I'm running on fumes right now. I need a real break. That caught me off guard means something surprised you. It's much more natural than saying, that surprised me. Say it. That caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that at all. I'm on the fence about it means you can't decide. You're torn. Practice. I'm on the fence about whether to take this job or stay where I am. You nailed it means you did something really well, successfully. It's much more enthusiastic than just saying, good job. Say it with emphasis. You absolutely nailed that presentation. Let's touch base means let's connect or communicate. In business especially, you'll hear this constantly. Practice. Let's touch base next week to see how things are progressing. At the end of the day is a transition phrase meaning ultimately when everything is considered. Practice. At the end of the day, what matters most is that you're happy. How you describe your schedule and availability says a lot about your fluency. Instead of basic phrases, let's use more natural, more nuanced language. Instead of I'm busy, you could say, I'm swamped right now. Work has been relentless, and I'm barely finding time to breathe. This conveys not just that you're busy, but how significantly busy you are. Or, my plate is absolutely full at the moment. I'm juggling several projects, and they're all demanding my attention simultaneously. When describing a particularly chaotic time, you might say, it's been non-stop lately. I literally don't remember the last time I had a weekend where I didn't have something scheduled. This really communicates the intensity. Say that with me. It's been non-stop lately. I literally don't remember the last time I had a weekend where I didn't have something scheduled. When you're starting to manage your time better, you might say, I'm finally getting more breathing room in my schedule. I've been strategic about what I'm taking on, and it's making a huge difference in my stress levels. This shows intentionality about your time management. When explaining your schedule to someone who wants to make plans with you, I've got some flexibility next week, but the following week is going to be really intense. Would next week work for you? As you become more fluent, you want to be able to articulate what matters to you and what your boundaries are. This requires sophisticated language. You might say, I've become really intentional about how I spend my time and energy. I'm learning to say no to things that don't align with my priorities. This shows self-awareness and maturity. Or, I've realized that I need to be more selective about what I commit to. I'd rather do fewer things really well than spread myself too thin. Say that with me. I've realized that I need to be more selective about what I commit to. I'd rather do fewer things really well than spread myself too thin. When setting a boundary, you might say, I care about our friendship deeply, and that's exactly why I need to be honest about what I can handle right now. I can't be available every single day, but I absolutely value our time together. This is loving while being clear about limits. When explaining your values, you could say, I've done a lot of thinking about what matters to me, and authenticity is really high on my list. I would rather have real conversations about what's actually going on than engage in surface-level small talk. This is clear and unapologetic. As you develop greater fluency, you'll want to talk about how you're growing and changing. Here are natural ways to express that. Instead of, I'm changing, you might say, I've been working on becoming more patient with myself. I've realized that I was being way too harsh about my mistakes, and I'm trying to be kinder. This shows self-reflection and specific growth. Or, I'm in a place where I'm really examining my habits and how they serve me. Some of them I'm keeping, and others I'm letting go of. This shows intentionality about personal development. When you've made progress on something you've been working on, you might say, I can feel the shift. I'm handling stress differently than I used to, and it's actually making a real difference in my daily life. This is concrete and shows awareness of your growth. Here's a useful phrase. I'm learning to listen better instead of immediately jumping to give advice. It's been a real mindset shift for me, but I think it's making me a better friend and colleague. Say that with me. I'm learning to listen better instead of immediately jumping to give advice. It's been a real mindset shift for me, but I think it's making me a better friend and colleague. Gratitude is powerful, and the way you express it matters. Instead of just saying, thanks, there are deeper, more meaningful ways to show appreciation. You might say, I really want to acknowledge what you did for me. You didn't have to go out of your way like that, and it genuinely meant a lot. Or, I can't thank you enough for your support. It made such a difference when I needed it most. This shows the impact they had. Here's a particularly meaningful way to express gratitude. What you did was incredibly generous, and it won't go unnoticed. I want you to know that it meant something real to me. This acknowledges both the action and its significance. What you did was incredibly generous, and it won't go unnoticed. I want you to know that it meant something real to me. When someone listens to you during a difficult time, you might say, thank you for taking the time to listen to me vent. It helped just to talk it through with someone who cares. I'm really grateful for you. This acknowledges the specific gift they gave you. When you make a mistake, the way you own it and apologize really matters. It shows maturity and builds trust. Instead of just saying, sorry, you might say, I made a mistake, and I want to take responsibility for it. I should have handled it differently, and I'm going to do better going forward. This is a true apology because it acknowledges what you did wrong and commits to change. Or, I owe you an apology. I wasn't thinking about how my actions would affect you, and I feel badly about that. This shows empathy for how your actions impacted them. Here's a useful phrase when you need to apologize but also explain. I'm sorry for how I handled that. I was stressed and took it out on you, which wasn't fair. I'm going to work on managing my stress better so that doesn't happen again. This acknowledges your mistake and commits to addressing the underlying issue. Say that with me. I'm sorry for how I handled that. I was stressed and took it out on you, which wasn't fair. I'm going to work on managing my stress better so that doesn't happen again. When apologizing for being insensitive, you might say, I feel terrible about what I said. Looking back, I can see how hurtful that was, and I didn't consider how it would land. I genuinely am sorry. This shows growth and empathy. Now let's put everything together and practice some realistic conversations that incorporate many of the phrases and techniques we've been learning. I'll set up scenarios, we'll practice them, and then we'll reflect on what made them work. Scenario 1. You're catching up with a friend you haven't seen in several months. Here's how that conversation might go. Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. I can't believe how long it's been. Tell me, what have you been up to? I feel like so much has probably changed in your life. Actually, yeah, things have been pretty eventful. I got a new job, and it's been keeping me incredibly busy. That's fantastic news. Congratulations. I remember you mentioning you were looking for a change. How's it been going so far? Are you enjoying it? For the most part, yeah. It's been overwhelming sometimes, but I'm learning a lot. That's wonderful. I'm really happy for you. It sounds like it's been intense, though, with everything you've got going on. How are you managing to take care of yourself? Do you see how this conversation flows naturally? We're using connecting language, we're asking follow-up questions, we're showing genuine interest. Practice this conversation with me now. Scenario 2. You're declining an invitation because you're overwhelmed. Here's how that might sound. Hey, we're having people over this Saturday. Can you make it? That sounds like such a fun gathering, and I really appreciate the invitation. I'm going to have to pass this time, though. I've been running at full capacity for weeks, and I really need to just rest and recharge this weekend. I hope you have an amazing time, and maybe I can catch the next one. Oh no, we'll miss you. I understand, though. I hope things calm down for you soon. Thank you for being understanding. I really do value you, and I want to catch up soon when I'm not completely wiped. Let's plan something for next month when I have more breathing room. Notice how you're being honest about your limitations while also expressing care for the friendship and opening the door for future connection. Say this with me. That sounds like such a fun gathering, and I really appreciate the invitation. I'm going to have to pass this time, though. I've been running at full capacity for weeks, and I really need to just rest and recharge this weekend. I hope you have an amazing time, and maybe I can catch the next one. The same skills we've been learning apply in professional settings, but with slightly different nuance. Let's explore how to use these phrases in workplace contexts. When you need to disagree with a colleague's idea in a meeting, you might say, "I appreciate you bringing this to the table. I can see the potential benefits. I do want to raise a concern for discussion. Have we thought about how this might impact our resource allocation?" This respectfully introduces a concern without being dismissive. Say that with me. I appreciate you bringing this to the table. I can see the potential benefits. I do want to raise a concern for discussion. Have we thought about how this might impact our resource allocation? When you're taking on a project and you want to be clear about deadlines and expectations, you might say, "I'm excited to take this on. Just to confirm my understanding, the deadline is end of month, right? And the deliverables include these 3 things? I want to make sure I'm aligned with what you're expecting." This shows professionalism while clarifying expectations. When you need to manage someone's expectations about your availability, you might say, "I'm committed to supporting this project. I do want to be transparent about my current workload so we can set realistic expectations. I can dedicate about 10 hours this week, and then I'll have more availability the following week. This is honest and practical." The real magic happens when you can take all of these phrases and techniques and weave them together into genuine, flowing conversations. Let's talk about what makes conversations feel natural and how to develop that skill. The real magic happens when you can take all of these phrases and techniques and weave them together into genuine, flowing conversations. Let's talk about what makes conversations feel natural and how to develop that skill. Instead of just moving on to the next topic, you engage with what they said. You might say, "That's interesting. When you say it affected you that way, can you tell me more about what that looked like?" This shows you're genuinely curious about their experience. Second, authentic conversations involve some vulnerability. You're not just asking questions, you're also sharing appropriately about your own experience. This creates balance and deepens the connection. You might say, "That reminds me of something I went through. I handled it differently, but I totally understand why you made the choice you did." This creates alliance. Third, authentic conversations involve follow-through. If someone tells you something is important to them and you see them a few weeks later, you remember and ask about it. You might say, "Hey, how did that interview go that you were nervous about? I've been thinking about you and hoping it went well." Part of fluency is having the awareness to read the room and adjust your communication accordingly. The same phrase can land completely differently depending on context, tone, and the relationship. For instance, "I'm not quite sure about that," could be delivered with humor and lightness, Or it could be delivered with concern, depending on what you're unsure about. The words are the same, but the tone and context change everything. Practice saying this with humor. I'm not quite sure about that. Now practice saying it with genuine concern. I'm not quite sure about that. Similarly, when someone shares good news, you could respond with genuine excitement or with measured happiness, depending on how close you are to them and what's appropriate in that moment. Oh my goodness, that's amazing! I'm so incredibly happy for you. This is huge! That's wonderful news. Congratulations! You must be really pleased. Here's the truth. Fluency isn't something you achieve and then stop working on. It's an ongoing practice of refining your expression, expanding your vocabulary, and deepening your ability to connect with people. The fact that you're here, doing this work, shows you're committed to genuine growth. One of the best things you can do is start practicing these phrases in your real conversations this week. Don't wait until you feel fully confident. Use them in real situations, even if you feel a little awkward at first. That awkwardness is actually the sweet spot where learning happens. As you use these phrases more and more, they'll stop feeling like something you're consciously using and will start feeling like natural parts of your communication. Another powerful practice is to record yourself speaking. You might feel self-conscious about this, but it's incredibly valuable. Hearing yourself speak helps you identify patterns in your speech, accents you might want to adjust, and areas where you're already sounding more natural. You'll be amazed at how much progress you'll notice when you listen back to recordings from a few weeks ago. Also, find people you can practice with regularly. Whether that's a language exchange partner, a speaking coach, or even friends who are patient with your learning, having consistent practice partners matters tremendously. Real conversations, with all their messiness and spontaneity, are where fluency really develops. As we're wrapping up, I want to really emphasize something important. You've just learned dozens of advanced conversational phrases and techniques. That's genuinely impressive. But here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to think you have to be perfect with all of these. Language learning isn't about perfection. It's about communication. It's about connection. I don't want you to think you have to be perfect with all of these. Language learning isn't about perfection. It's about communication. It's about connection. The fact that you're making an effort to speak more naturally, more fluently, to really connect with people, that matters. People notice that. They appreciate it. And it actually makes conversations better, not worse. Think back to when you started learning English. You've come so far from those early days of memorizing basic phrases and grammar rules. Now you're thinking about nuance, about reading situations, about expressing complex emotions and ideas. That's real progress. That's fluency developing. I want to encourage you to be patient with yourself, but also to be bold. Don't wait until you feel completely confident to use these phrases. Start using them in your conversations this week. You'll stumble sometimes. You might mispronounce something or use a phrase in a slightly awkward way. That's completely fine. That's how learning works. Every single time you use one of these phrases, you're building new neural pathways and your English is becoming more natural. Now, I want to give you a concrete way to keep practicing and keep improving. Here's what I suggest you do. First, pick 3 of the phrases from today's episode that resonated with you the most, the ones that felt the most useful for your life right now. Write them down, say them out loud multiple times until they feel natural in your mouth. Second, identify situations where you'll practice these phrases this week. Maybe it's a conversation with a friend, a meeting at work, a casual chat with someone you see regularly. Having specific situations in mind makes it much more likely you'll actually use the phrases rather than just thinking about them. Third, after you use each phrase, notice how it lands. Did it feel natural? Did the other person respond positively? What might you adjust next time? This reflective practice is what takes you from knowing about phrases to actually being able to use them fluently. Fourth, come back to this episode and listen again in a few weeks. You'll be amazed at how much more resonates the second time. Things that seemed complicated will suddenly feel obvious. Phrases that seemed impossible will now feel doable. Today's episode is just the beginning. There's so much more to explore in terms of advanced English communication, different contexts, different relationships, different cultural nuances. The world of English communication is rich and deep, and you're now equipped to explore it more confidently. I encourage you to seek out other people who speak English fluently and pay attention to how they talk. Listen to podcasts, watch movies and shows, read books. Notice the phrases people use, the way they structure conversations, how they handle different situations. This kind of observational learning is incredibly powerful. And please, come back and tell me how you're progressing. What phrases did you use? How did they work? What challenges are you still facing? These conversations with you help me continue to create content that's actually useful for your English learning journey. Well, friends, we've covered so much ground today. We've explored how to initiate conversations naturally, how to make plans with flexibility and care, how to express uncertainty gracefully, how to react to positive news with genuine enthusiasm, how to navigate disagreement respectfully, how to offer help gracefully, how to decline invitations kindly, how to ask for clarification politely, and so much more. These aren't just phrases, they're tools for genuine connection. They're ways of showing people that you see them, that you care about their experience, that you're genuinely engaged in relationship with them. And that's what fluency really is. It's not about sounding like a textbook. It's not about having a perfect accent or never making mistakes. It's about being able to express yourself authentically, to connect genuinely with other people, to navigate the beautiful complexity of human communication. That's what we're building toward. So as you leave here today, I want you to feel excited, not intimidated. You've learned advanced techniques that will genuinely improve your English, and you have everything you need to keep practicing and keep growing. The work you're doing matters. The effort you're putting in is paying off, and I believe in your ability to become genuinely fluent, confident, and natural in English. Before you go, please remember to share this podcast with someone who would benefit from it. Your recommendation means the world and helps our community grow. And don't forget to subscribe so you get notifications every time we upload a new episode. And seriously, check out the podcast playlist if you haven't yet. We've got such a growing collection of content there, and I think you'll find it really valuable. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I absolutely love creating this content, and knowing that it's helping you become more confident and fluent in English makes it all worthwhile. Keep practicing, stay committed to your growth, and I will absolutely see you in the next episode. Until then, keep speaking, keep connecting, and remember, fluency is built one conversation at a time. Take care and happy learning!